Sit down. Sit down and shut up. Sit down and shut up. That's a mistake.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September Angular Meetup. Welcome to New York. Today we have a very special guest, one of the heavyweights of the Angular world, Uri Goldshtein. So he's going to be talking about Meteor and Angular. So I have one special request for this meetup. Please don't use the coffee machine during the presentation because people can't hear the presenter. So if you need coffee, do it now or wait until the presentation is over. Thanks.
So you can use the coffee machine now because it's going to be boring. So I'm Uri, and I wrote the Angular-Meteor library, but I was an Angular developer much before I heard about Meteor. And I started like very early writing Angular apps, and I was mostly focused on building mobile apps with Angular. And so I thought that for this talk, I will maybe do just like a combination of all of those together, because a lot of people ask me about like, can I use, what is better, Ionic or Meteor? Or what is better, Angular or Meteor? So you can use them all together. And yeah, and I'll talk about that. So anything you want to, I don't know, to know what I'm doing or something like that, it's just you can follow me on the GitHub page. That's the best place. Usually I don't talk a lot, but just code, so you can look. That's the best place to look. So it's very hard to talk about Angular and Meteor and Ionic all together in the same talk. I mean, who here knows about Meteor? Okay. Who here used Meteor once? Yeah, a few hands. When I started talking about Angular, it was even less of people. So I will talk about Meteor. What is Meteor? Although you probably can find it on YouTube. People doing it better than me, or me doing it in other conferences. But then I want to show. I basically, most of the work that I'm doing is showing people that stuff that they think is impossible is possible. So like people are used to say you can't use Angular and Meteor. So I wrote the Angular Meteor library. People used to say you can't use Ionic with Meteor. So I wrote that as well. And it's relatively easy. So it's just like, I mean, I haven't done anything like super special. So I'll show you today how to use Ionic with Meteor. I'll build actually two apps. Like one will be through the Ionic CLI, through the Ionic platform, connecting to a Meteor backend. And one will be the same app, but on the Meteor platform, connecting the Ionic into it. And I wanted to do live coding, but I don't know where to stick this microphone while I'm speaking. Maybe I'll stick it in my hair or something. We'll figure it out. And then also I want to talk about the future of like where Meteor is going, where Ionic is going, where mobile web is going. So, and on top of that, I'll try to leave like lots of time for Q&A, because usually in conferences they don't give time for Q&A, and I think that's the most important thing. So we have a lot to cover. So what is Meteor? Meteor is a full stack open source platform for building web and mobile apps in JavaScript. And that's a long phrase because Meteor is doing a lot of stuff. It's a platform. It means that it takes care of everything you need to do to build a mobile app or a web app. And it's pure JavaScript in the backend and in the front end. And it's the only real platform that takes real advantage of this. And I'll show you that in a second, why in Meteor you can actually share code between server and client and not just sharing the knowledge of using the same language. It's completely open source. You can host it, you can build it on your own, you can host it on your own servers, you can deploy it everywhere, you can write packages, you can fork it, you can write packages, you can extend it to use Angular or whatever you want. And it's built with a modern architecture, which is the most important thing here. There's a lot of components that build Meteor, and I'm gonna walk through them in a second. But I want to say here that I really believe that Meteor is the best backend for Angular applications. And it's any type of Angular applications. And it's a bold statement, and I hope that in the Q&A you can fry me on that. So why Meteor is the best backend for Angular applications? So the thing is that if we look a few years back, the web is changing, and the user world, user-facing applications are changing. First of all, they use mobile, right? It's not a big news now that your users first of all use mobile and then they use their laptops. But also their apps are live updating. Like if you can look at Uber or like applications like that, or even Facebook, like you don't have refresh buttons anymore. Nobody click refresh. The user doesn't know about it. Probably in the browser it will be gone in a year or so. So the app refreshes itself. And more than that, you have more and more applications that work with multi-user collaborations, like, I don't know, like Google Docs, where you can actually see each one is typing, and it's all happening in real time. And the user now expects those. I mean, when I started and build Angular applications, I used to, I don't know, send HTTP requests and wait for the promise to resolve and maybe put a nice spinner, but the user today hates that. He doesn't expect that. He uses Twitter, he uses Facebook, Uber, Gmail, and he won't be tolerant for you doing that. So you have to think of your architecture, your full stack architecture, like the Gmail team is thinking about. And I'll show you what it means. So building that type of application is hard. Like you can think about Trello. Trello is probably most of you have heard about it. It's like a task manager or a very famous app, and everything is syncing in real time. Nobody's clicking refresh, and it's hard to do it. It's I mean that they have many blog posts about writing how they wrote Trello and how hard it was to sync everything in real time. But in Meteor, two guys from two different countries collaborated for 2 months and built the Trello clone. And I mean, I showed it in other talks, but then they got sued by Trello. And there's more and more like stories about that. There's now a tutorial on the web to build the Slack clone for Meteor beginners. So, and the idea behind that is, the best way to explain it is like looking at the Gmail architecture. So if you're a front-end developer working for Gmail, and maybe there are a few here, I don't know, maybe not. So you don't do HTTP requests. and HTTP requests. Let's say if I'm writing a draft now in Gmail and I'm offline, I'm just writing. I'm not waiting for a spinner. I'm not waiting for anything. That's because I'm writing the documents into my client data cache. So you can see it right over here. And that happens instantly. I'm not waiting for promises. I'm not putting spinners. It just happens instantly, like a native app on iOS and Android, and like a native app on Windows. And then later on, I'm a Google developer, so I have a huge team of developers that takes care of syncing that data cache across to the server and back. Because a lot of stuff can happen, right? Like if I'm writing stuff on the client and I don't have permissions on the server, then probably the stuff that I wrote on the client cache should be erased. So in Gmail, there's a team that takes care of that. In Facebook, there's a team that takes care of that. In Twitter as well. But there's no open source development platform out there that takes care of this, let's say, need or a feature or a problem that users expect today. So most of us, what do we do when we write Angular applications? We use HTTP requests or use some kind of a WebSocket or something like that. And the user is not forgiving as you think. So Meteor thought about, okay, let's take this problem and solve it for everyone because it's a hard problem, but everyone needs that. So that's exactly what the Meteor, this is one example of what the Meteor platform is for and why it's modern architecture. I have like a lecture of like an hour talking about just about Meteor, but I'll just touch on one more point and then move on to Ionic. So a lot of people are talking about isomorphic JavaScript, and which means basically that you can write JavaScript on the web, on the client, and you can write JavaScript on the server. And that's nice. But actually, if you, I don't know, probably some of you are developing with the min stack, then you know that it's this isomorphic legend not work so well when you actually do applications with the min stack, because in the DB you have, with the same, let's say we have here like a specific type of user, let's say your own user. So on the client, it has a name, and if you want to call to the server, it has a different name. And then on the DB, it has another different name. So you can't share any code, right? So everything is JavaScript, that's fine, but I can't really share anything. But in Meteor, everything is with the same API. So on the client, I have the same API as the server. And I can call functions on the server exactly like I'm calling them on the client. So that means I have the same language, like maybe other frameworks like the min stack, but I also have the same DB API. And then I can really have a true isomorphic thing. So let's say I have a method, and that method is taking something out of a collection in the database and then doing something with it. So in Meteor, I can write this function once, and I'll demonstrate it here later on. And then this function will run on the client. I can use this function on the client and on the server. I'm writing it once. And one of the most important things that happens when you, let's say if you're an Angular developer and you're starting working with Meteor, you realize that you write a lot of logic on your Angular applications, but that logic is not supposed to be there. You're writing that on Angular on the client side because you don't want to mess around with the server things that like takes tons of time, and you don't want to worry about that. So our Angular applications are getting bigger and bigger, but that's not a good architecture. So in Meteor, you realize that you write it on the server, and it's easy and fast, as it is with Angular or any other front-end framework. But then you can just move it and place it wherever you want. But when that happens, and I'll cut the talking very soon, I promise. Then you get another thing, which it's called optimistic UI. So if like here, I have the same function that I can run on the client and on the server. So let's say I want to, I don't know, I want to star something or +1 a post. Let's say I want to +1 a post. Now, by the time that I'm pressing +1, there's a good chance there's another user that, or another 50 users that will add another +1s. So on my client, I have two possibilities. I can +1 that post, and I can put a spinner with an HTTP request and wait for the response, and that get the 50, and the user will say, that's an old app. That's like a, I don't know. That's not the use. He won't say it, but he will feel it. He won't like your application so much. Or you can do, in Meteor, you can actually write that code once and then run it both on the client and both on the server. Now, how will it look? So let's say I'm +1ing this post. So I'm calling a method, +1 post or whatever. And then this method first runs on the client. And I wrote this method once. This method runs on the client, then save it on my local database. And the user instantly get what we call the optimistic UI. In real time, the 5 goes to 6. It doesn't wait for anything. It feels like it's a native app. In the meantime, the Meteor calls the same method on the server. Then something happens. Let's say it saves it on the database, and let's say we found out there's a 55 +1s. So now through the publications in real time, not only our client, but all the other clients gets that update. And then when that update gets back to the client, now we have the real result. So if we had 6, it will go to 50. Or let's say if I didn't have permission, it will go to 6 and then back to 5. But we won't have to place spinners or any other method. Notice that a lot of people, when they think about real time, they talk about WebSockets. WebSockets is just like one small piece of the puzzle here, right? WebSockets is even like the smallest piece of the puzzle here. The client-side cache and the mechanism to sync that with the server is the big picture. So now I'm gonna live code two apps. One is Ionic. Wait, let's see, what will I do with this mic? Yeah, the clip-ons I tried before, and you can't hear anything, so crap. I don't know. Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay, if it will fall, then I don't want to drop like Google property, right? Yeah. Can you hear me? The people in the back can hear me? Awesome. So what I'm going to do now is develop an Ionic app. Now let's say I have one of the things of the myth that people have about Meteor is that you have to use the Meteor ecosystem. You can't, right? You can't use your own your own apps. Oh, it's like a magician right here. I can do a trick. So you can't use your own apps, and you have to rewrite from scratch, and that's a myth. So I'm going to write an application on the Ionic framework. And Ionic framework just released like this Ionic platform, and with Ionic CLI, it means that you can like start an app. It's kind of like the Yeoman generator. So you can. This example is here to show you, and I'm going to show you something that I never showed before, that I wrote for with a friend of mine for like 2 months now, that you can actually show you that you can use Meteor with Power on your existing apps. So you be happy to be the first ones who see that. So yeah, so I just already prepared. So to start with the Ionic thing, so you can just like install with npm, you can install the platform, like do npm install, and then you can just you have like a Ionic start, which means you get the scaffold of your app, very much like a Yeoman generator, but for Ionic. So that's the thing, right? I have an app here. It's scaffolded with the Ionic chat, with the Ionic thing, with the Ionic CLI. And let's just run it. So Ionic serve. Yeah, and there's nothing Meteor about that. Let's hope Ionic will work. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, so we have a chat app. Can you see? Oh, yeah. The resolution here is amazing. Yeah, so I have a chat app, and oh, what's happening here? Why is that? How can I hide this thing? Let's do like that. Awesome. Okay, so I have a chat app, and I can write messages. And as you can see, like on my other client, nothing gets nowhere, right? It's not synced anywhere. So just random stuff. So that's nice. That's just pure Ionic and pure Angular, and nothing is happening here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add Meteor, but without adding the Meteor platform. I'm going to add Meteor like you used to add stuff with Power. So, and that's a new thing. So, and it's not really a new thing. It's just that people like to say that it's impossible, but it's possible. So more than that, there's like steps I wrote here that I'm going to go through them, and so you can later on do it yourself. So that's my app, and let's just create a new Meteor server. So where am I? I'm the same. So let's do Meteor create server. Just like a new Meteor server inside my existing app. Cool, so now I have a server. Let's open that server in the code. And let's start writing some server code, which is very scary. So we have messages. So let's create a messages array, which is a new Mongo collection. We'll call it messages. And that's it. That's my server code. Now let's go back to the client. So before starting the server, let's go back here. And let's do bower install. And just let Meteor, I think it's Meteor, client side. Let's just make sure. Yeah, Meteor client side. And what you see here is something that nobody has seen before. So actually what I did here, people said, no, Meteor is just like a complete platform, a monolithic thing. You can't separate it. No, I separated it, and it took me like, with a frame of mind, like 10 minutes. So the thing is that Meteor does that for you, but if you want, it's completely open source and you can use whatever you want. So now you have a Meteor client side that has everything Meteor gives you, including that client side cache with Power on your own Ionic application. Now you want also to use Angular, so let's do Power install Angular Meteor. And yeah, like, so this thing, Meteor solves that for you, but we're with Power now. So it's solved. So we have now on our client, we have Meteor client side and we have Angular Meteor. So now we have to do all the stuff that like regular people who don't use Meteor has to do, which means to add the script tags into index.html. So I used to remember how to do those stuff back in the day. Yeah, so great. So can you see the code? Okay, so I basically added the Meteor runtime and the Meteor client side and Angular Meteor. And it's completely open source and it sits on my client side library. And it talks to my client, to Meteor like any other app. So now the stuff that I do need to add stuff to my client side that Meteor doesn't give that for me because I'm not in Meteor. So I need to notify the client side that I have a messages Mongo collection. So let's you see it's the same code, but I'm writing it on the client side. And now the only thing I need to do is to connect this like strange array that doesn't go anywhere. I need to connect it to the Meteor to automatically sync. So the only thing I need to do, basically, inside my controller is to do scope.meteor collection. And here, I'm just connecting it to the messages. And that's it. Now, let's start our Ionic app. Let's start our totally separate Meteor app. Oh, Meteor server. Where are you? Ah, sorry. Can you see here? Can you see? Let's start our Meteor server. And now you will see that I'm talking to Meteor is just in the backend, and I have a complete separate app here. Let's try to do the same thing as before. Just a second. Yeah, the resolution is great indeed. And now that I'm writing a message here, oh, 1 second. Always it has to be errors, right? Oh, it doesn't know what Angular-Meteor is. So, of course, because this is another thing, Angular-Meteor. Awesome. A rookie mistake. Yeah. Cool, let's try it again. Oh, and it syncs everywhere. Now, what happened here, it was good. It terrified me for a second, but it was good because you saw that it took a while for that client, for this client to sync, and here it happened instantly. And that's exactly the client-side cache that it's happening here, and you now use it through Bower without using the Meteor platform. So it happens here instantly, and then later on syncs with the server and with all the other clients. So that was a very good example. Now, cool. So now one myth is gone, right? You can take your existing apps, whether you use a .NET backend or whether you use a Yeoman or Gulp or Grant and all those, I don't know, whatever things you like to use to hurt yourself. And yeah, and you can use everything and just gradually move to Meteor. So that's fun. Let's add users, right? We have a chat app and we have to add users because right now it's just random user. It's a bit of a pity to talk to yourself. So let's add a package to Meteor. This is our Meteor server. Let's Meteor add accounts password. And accounts password is a package that takes care of accounts with password. There's accounts for Facebook, for Twitter, for Google Plus or whatever you want. And also there's, and I'll talk, I mean, everything I'm doing here, it's actually, I'm going to release a blog post in Ionic and Meteor in a week or 2 weeks from now. And that I actually built a WhatsApp clone. And in WhatsApp, you use SMS to log in. So there's just a community package in Meteor that does accounts SMS. So that's all you need. So unlike other platforms, you can extend it. It's open source. You can extend it. You can do whatever you want with it. So yeah, so I'm adding the Meteor add accounts password. And then I have, because we're not on the Meteor platform, I have to do the same to take the client-side part and do it on my client-side part. So again, we took the accounts password client-side from Meteor and migrated it to Bower. So now we can do the same, but here on my Ionic app, do Bower install accounts password client-side. And like you used to do. And there we have it. Now, again, we need to add stuff to our script tags. Later on, I will show you the same app, but on the Meteor platform. And then you can see that once you're migrated like here, like that, to Meteor backend, later on, you probably want to migrate completely to the Meteor platform to save you a bunch of time and code. So yeah, let's put it here. So again, I just added those two things. I have accounts now. Now I need to write like a controller for login, for register, for logout. I think I'm just gonna copy those controllers, so I won't take too much of your time. So I'm just gonna copy that, and I'll show you what I've done. Don't worry, it's not like that. I'm just copying it from here. Let's see if I can show you very quickly what I've changed. Yeah, so besides like indenting stuff, it's just that I have, wow, the resolution is wrong. So I just added like a few buttons, right? Like login, logout, something very simple. Everything else is the same. And I also want to add like a controller, right, to handle the login, logout, and all those stuff. So just copy that. Again, I'll show you what I've done. So this change happened before, the messages I had added before, but I just added this function login, function register, and logout. Now, you see that those functions are really simple, right? I only have to do meteor.login with password. $meteor, which is a service I added here, create user. $meteor logout. Super simple. And in Meteor, it's even simpler. But again, this is your own app, and you can use whatever you want. And the next thing, another thing that I've changed is I have a root scope now. On the root scope, I'm keeping the current user all the time, so I can use it everywhere, and I can use its ID. So when I push a message, then I'm pushing the ID of the user. So let's just test that. Again, it's Ionic serve and Meteor. By the way, I didn't have to stop the servers. I could just change it, and then Meteor will just refresh itself. And I think Ionic will do the same. Yeah. Let's see who's quicker. Oh, okay. Cool. So now I have users. So, oh, I have already here. Let's go here. Yeah. So I have users. So let's say let's register a user. Uri.333.com. Let's register with password. Cool. Now let's do Uri444.com. Sorry for the self promotion. Cool. So now let's try to write a message, and let's say let's read. Yeah. Okay. I'm Uri333. And I'm Uri444. I'm still Uri444. And you see that the users are authenticated, they're logged in, and if I'm logged out, I can't do anything. So that's great. So I built in like, I don't know, 3 minutes with a mic on my shoulder, an app with Angular and Meteor, and Ionic, a mobile app. And now we're with Ionic, so I can just like do deploy with the Ionic way they're doing it. And that's fine. Oh, but actually that application is not secure at all, right? Like, I mean, the data is going everywhere, and also anyone who has that front-end code that is pushing can push like whatever he wants. So that's not secure. So let's make our app secure. So first of all, let's remove from our servers 2 packages. That's called one called insecure, which is a very nice name, and auto-publish, which publishes everything to all the clients. And that basically will change the behavior for Meteor not to check, not to, not to be insecure. Now, that's very important here because right now, this is an important point. What I'm doing here, which is basically how I designed Angular Meteor, was that I can use these scope messages like an array. So I can just push, and I don't know, Firebase calls it like three-way data binding, and it's very fun, and it's very easy. But that's one of, I think, the most broken things in the current Angular architecture. I don't want to do those actions. This action of actually adding something to the messages collection, I need to do on the server, and the server needs to make sure that I'm authenticated and a whole bunch of other stuff. So this code is something that is the first thing that you go now and you see large Angular applications that are slow, that are insecure. That's the first thing you notice. And when you move to Meteor, you instantly realize that there's a bigger picture. Most of the problems are not because of Angular versus React or stuff like that. It's because our Angular architecture is broken. We need to move stuff for the server. And I'm not blaming myself, definitely, because I mean, writing Angular code is so much faster than writing .NET code. So, but with Meteor, it's changed. So I removed that now from the server, and now I need to publish. First of all, I need to publish everything. So just to make it quick, I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay. So I'm going to the server code, and I'm adding this code. What I've added here, I added a Meteor method. Meteor method is kind of like an endpoint, right? But it's easier to call that endpoint. I don't need to name it with a REST endpoint or something like that. I can just call send messages, that's it. And this function will happen. And my server will make sure that I have a user ID. That's the simplest way of like checking if I'm authenticated or not. And then I'm doing an insert to the database, right? I'm doing messages insert, message, user ID, and photo. I'm just like placing a random photo here. So now everything that happens is secure. First of all, it's going to the server, and I know that I'm protected. So first of all, much better than pushing stuff to an array on Angular. The second thing is that now I have to explicitly publish my data to the client. But with Meteor, it's very easy because I don't need to call something and get something back. I have Meteor publish with, I just name it like messages. I check if that user is really authenticated to get that information. And then I'm running a query. And the important thing about that is that Meteor has a live query mechanism, which means it's kind of like watch on the database. I don't have to recognize all the changes in my app. The only thing I need to do is write that query once, and Meteor will watch the database and will make sure that any change that will come, even if it's not from my own server, I will notice that change and will send it automatically to all the clients. So that's the whole publication code. And think about it as like, if you compare it to Rails or something, think about comparing Angular to jQuery, right? Suddenly, you don't have to write a bunch of code just to understand something that happened. So it's the same thing, but on the backend. So that's fine. We have a server, very complicated server. And now we need to do this to handle that on the client. So yeah, I'll do it also very quickly. Sorry for not live coding everything, but you can watch other talks of me live code everything. I just wanted to show you that you can do everything here. It's not like magic, or I'm not like a super smart guy. I'm just somehow someone called me here by chance. So what I've changed here is that I just took, let's do it ourselves. I'm going to take this server code, and I'm just going to copy paste that server code on the client. Right? That's it. Now, the only thing I've changed is, first of all, to get the data, I need to subscribe to that data. So I've done Meteor subscribe, 2 messages. And when I get the data, which that promise is resolved when I get the first data to the client, but it keeps updating by itself. I don't need to handle every time. It just happens. And then I'm writing the same code, associating the messages with the collection. Now, the other thing I've done is instead, maybe I'll diff this thing. So instead of doing scope messages push, I call a function. I call that send message function. Now, I could remove that code, and that basically means that I would call that function, and then it will go to the server, happen on the server, and then I will get the subscription back. But I want it to be instantly. So I just took the same code, I copied it to the client, and now, hopefully, if I've done everything that I'm supposed to do, I don't know, let's check. Yeah, I think I'm done. This will work. So let's run our Meteor server. Our Ionic app is already running. So that's the only reason it wins now. And let's go to our app. And let's open another client. And you can see I'm logged in here. And the same thing, but genuinely secure, with genuinely good code. Let's just test it so to make sure I haven't made many mistakes. So blah, 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 I'm still Uri 444. Yeah, cool. And I'm still Uri 350. Awesome. So we've written so first thing, what happened here is that first thing, you haven't needed to change anything on your app, right? You use services, you use Bower, you haven't moved to any other platform. It's not scary, it's not a monolithic thing. You just add it through Bower, like you would do with REST Angular or HTTP or whatever you want. But you have a server, and a very modern server. So you could stay with that. You can still use Meteor with your own stack. Like you can use Webpack, you can use all those stuff, and that's great, right? So you have a server here, you can place it in a completely different way, and you can just put the URL somewhere, and that's it, that works. And that's our app, that's our Ionic app. Now, just to show you what other stuff Meteor, and that's the main stuff that Meteor is giving you, but just to show you a few other stuff that Meteor is giving you, this is the same app, but in the Meteor platform, still using Ionic. It's exactly the same app, so it's just in a different port. So let's do localhost 5000, because it's more and it's better. And you can see I have the same app. Let's log in with uri222.com. And you can see I have the same app, same HTML, same everything, and it syncs everywhere. Now, what is the changes? What are the changes? First of all, I don't know if I have time right now, but if I would live code it, it would take me it was pretty short to do it on the first app. It will take me probably half the time to do it on Meteor. The second thing, look at how much code do you have here, how much files you have here, and how much files you have here. So all of that boilerplate code, I mean, Ionic and Yeoman generators are really nice about generating all that code for you. But in Meteor, you just don't need that code. I mean, you never do. Let's look at the HTML file, for instance. So we all used to do all of this, right? Let's write bower and then add this thing here. Let's add bower and this thing here, and sometimes we forget and whatever. In Meteor, that's my head, and that's it. Meteor just like I'm doing, like you saw, Meteor add accounts package or accounts password, and I get everything, and Meteor just understands. And think about it, it's not that smart. So, but it's why? But it's just, I don't know, stupid that nobody else is doing that. But why should I tell them that I need to edit? It's in my project, so just edit. So Meteor does that for you. So saves you bunch of time and bunch of like files, like I don't know, bower and gulp files. Like everyone likes to write gulp files. I don't know why. It's kind of like fetish or something. So when you use Meteor, it's just like you realize you don't need, and I was a gulp expert, right? I used to charge tons of money of like helping people writing their gulp file, and I felt so smart and everything. And then I use Meteor, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
In that code there, you have ng controller and ng.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the Meteor app?
No, that's just a regular Angular code. Like in any Angular app, you can see that if I'm going to the other HTML, I have the same thing, right? ng controller. So everything is the same, just much less code. And not only that, you saw that I copied the Meteor method twice, and I copied the Mongo messages twice. Here, I just write it once. And Meteor understands that this thing and this thing just he copies them himself. So less mistakes, one code base, and suddenly my front-end developers can start writing backend code much faster, and they can start writing their security code and their methods in the right place, in the right architecture. So that's Meteor, and you see everything is the same, right? Scope messages, Meteor, it's just the same code. I just copied it from there and created it in Meteor. So what I want to show you here is that, now I can remove that. What I want to show you here is that you can gradually move to Meteor. You should move to Meteor, but you can actually do it gradually. You don't, it's not a monolithic thing that you have to use. And also, you should migrate, I think you should migrate all the way to Meteor, because it's just so much better. And when people say, oh, I can't use my gulp file, I can't use Webpack and stuff like that, if you want, you can use it. But most people that move to Meteor don't use gulp files. They look at gulp files and they're like, what? Yeah. So why Meteor? Oh, I hate when there's bullet points like running. I always, yeah, okay. So why Meteor? You can develop fast. You saw. It's like, I know, any other service that you can develop fast and build a fast prototype. But then when you scale, both in actual scaling and both in a more complex app, then it's still, you can still use the same code. You don't need to move from that service to another service. And that's very important. So you can actually build apps faster, but they also use quality code. And the second bullet here is what I said before. It makes you think about the bigger picture. It makes you understand that the logic that you write on your Angular apps is not supposed to be there. First, it's supposed to be on the server side, and then maybe some of it should go on the client side. So usually when now that I'm sometimes consulting to companies, I'm like, they're asking me, oh, maybe, we have a huge Angular app and it's slow. Maybe we should migrate to React or something. And just instantly you understand that, like, React or Angular are not the problem. The problem is the architecture. Why I think Meteor is great? I think the team is the core thing behind Meteor. There's like 30, 35 engineers that they're like the smartest people I ever met, and they funded really hard, so they just work and building amazing stuff. So if I'm comparing it, like with the exception of me, I'm like the black sheep or something. But if you look at other open source projects or other like, I don't know, Happy.js, or like, there's like very few people working on it part-time. Meteor is like 30, they're just destroying everything else. It's like the amount of work they do every day is just crazy, and those are really, really smart people. Another thing is the community. Like Angular Meteor, I was a community member. I wasn't a Meteor member. The Meteor native iOS app, iOS library that you can write, actually you can connect with the same simplicity and optimistic UI that I showed you here with Angular. You can do the same with native iOS apps, was also built by the community. So Meteor community is huge. There's like over 7,000 packages, and this is another big strength of Meteor. And another reason is Galaxy. Galaxy is Meteor's hosting platform, which you don't have to use, but it's just super simple to scale. Like, scaling usually is hard, and like it's so much easier here to create an app really fast. With Galaxy, it's so much easier to scale. It's like you don't need to use DevOps, and you don't need to use anything. It's a great service, but again, you don't have to use it. How much time do I have? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the future and what's happening, but I'll do it really quick. I hate those bullets. So I'll just talk about Angular 2.0 and Meteor. So someone asked me before the talk, like, why should I use Angular actually? Like, if Meteor is so great and Meteor works with React and works with Blaze, why should I use Angular? So I think the main reason is Angular 2.0. Angular 2.0 is fast, is blazingly fast, is like, I was talking to Brad Green like a month ago, and the way he described it is that first there was Angular, then React came and like improved on top of it, then Angular 2 came and improved on top of React. Like, we just released, in Meteor, we released a blog post that you should look at. And if you see the chart here, then we wrote the same app 4 times. First, on Meteor, one with Meteor and Angular 1, then with Meteor and Blaze, then with Meteor and React, and then with Meteor and Angular 2.0. Now, the top line, the gray one, is Angular 1. The second best is React. The third is Blaze. And the line that you can't see is Angular 2.0. So it's extremely fast. It's very smart. And I think the architecture is much better than React. And I think that's the reason you should use Angular with Meteor. So I wrote also the Angular 2.0 Meteor package, and which actually makes this thing even faster with the new version. And the thing is that instead of just like writing code and then expecting everyone to like believe me that it's working, everything I've done, I also wrote a tutorial about it. And the tutorial goes from wow, that resolution is horrible. So from step 0, where it's just a simple app, to what I showed you here, like full app with user accounts and privacy, and deploying your app to mobile apps, and search and pagination across your stack in real time, Google Maps, third-party libraries, files, taking pictures, like everything you need to do in an app, there's in this tutorial. That's the way you know it should work. And just recently I added this small button here that it's exactly the same, just in Angular 2.0. So I believe today that's the best tutorial for Angular 2.0 out there, because all the other tutorials are just like, I know, cute examples, and this is a real app that you can actually deploy and run. So yeah, you should check it out. And just in a general thing, we also created this page of Angular 2.0, which people are afraid of, like, how do I migrate and everything. And some guy from our community wrote Angular 2.0 now, which, if you look at the code, it looks like Angular 2.0, but that's actually Angular 1. So you can actually start writing today you're migrating your Angular 1 applications to look almost exactly identical to Angular 2.0. And then when you want to migrate, you just migrate instantly. And also, Angular just released a nice blog post about it. Yeah, so I'm meeting a lot with the Angular team, and the most important thing for the future is that now, after I've done the Angular Meteor thing, and both teams realize that it's important to talk to each other. Now we talk to each other. So there's a lot of collaboration with the Angular team and the Meteor team, and with subjects like mobile web. How is the mobile web going forward, and React Native and all those stuff. Yeah, so I wanted to have time for questions. It's really important to me. So yeah, so I hope, so thank you.
Questions?